Hey there, are you sitting down? Good, because Wayfair's end-of-season sale is here, and you can shop it from your couch. It's Wayfair's Labor Day clearance, and it's on now. Right now, you can score up to 70% off everything home at Wayfair, like up to 50% off outdoor furniture and decor, and up to 70% off area rugs, plus amazing doorbuster deals, and 24-hour surprise flash deals on Wayfair home finds in every style. And get it all with fast shipping on everything, right to your door. From furniture to faucets, this is your last chance of the season to score huge deals at Wayfair. Don't let the final days of summer pass you by without shopping these end-of-season savings. So don't wait. Like summer, these savings won't last. Head to wayfair.com today to score up to 70% off everything home. Celebrate your holiday weekend with can't-miss savings before they run out. Shop Wayfair's Labor Day clearance now through September 2nd at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can get a hold of me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting if you reach out to me through my email, oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Now, if you like our show, be sure to check out our Patreon, the Opperman Report Patreon. Everything you hear Monday to Friday on AM/FM radio, you can find over at Patreon with all the ads cut out, the commercials cut out. It's ad-free, commercial-free. Plus, a lot of free content, too. Any kind of court cases, court documents and stuff, I usually get them up there really quick, really fast. We got that whole Katie Johnson, all the whole Katie Johnson lawsuit stuff on the whole thing. Like, you can't find it anywhere else. And it's up there for free. Big shows I taped this week is one with the Vincent F. Amon, who worked for Michael Jackson. We got some great stuff out of him. And Georgy Skalatsov, who was the fellow there who testified at the Mueller Commission, the Mueller grand jury, about the Michael Cohen P tapes. Another exclusive. Guy's never done an interview since 2019 when you put out that content. Otherwise, you find me Friday nights, Spreaker.com. We do a live show there, 1 hour every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. There's 2 hours of brand new podcast content. And then as well, play repeats every night of the week. We have today Heidi Johnson, and she's a survivor of the Columbine shooting. Okay, and you can find her at healingwaters.org and on Facebook at HL Cortez with a Z. Miss Heidi Johnson, are you there?
I am. Great to be here, Ed. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hey, before we get into healingwaters.org and the whole Columbine shooting, which you survived. Yeah. Tell us about yourself. Who is Heidi Johnson?
Who is Heidi Johnson? What a question, and where to start with that. I am a global development practitioner. I have the amazing opportunity to work for an organization that I absolutely love, which has working in humanitarian development work. I've been able to travel the world and go to places that I feel like very few people get to go to, have been exposed to cultures and have been able to see sites that I feel like the average person just will never see. So I feel very fortunate and blessed, but really am passionate about using whatever power that I have, whatever I've been given, even as a survivor, as somebody who made it that day on April 20th, to use that power that I have, the life that I have, to make the world a better place. So I look for opportunities to do that as much as I possibly can.
Well, explain what this is. You're talking about healingwaters.org, Healing Waters International. And what exactly is that?
Yeah, so we are a organization that works in providing safe water solutions. So I don't know if many people are aware that 2 billion people don't have access to safe water around the world, and that produces great levels of suffering. At any point in time, half of the hospital beds around by somebody who has a waterborne illness. You think about just the outflows of not having safe water. You drink unsafe water, the diseases that can cause, what that means for productivity, what that means for health. And so we're providing abundant, safe water solutions predominantly in Latin America and Haiti, in very rural and remote areas where people are truly suffering because they don't have access to water. And we like to provide water, as we say, in abundance. So a lot of solutions will provide enough water for drinking, which is wonderful, and it's a great start, but it's only a start. And so we like to make sure that people have water for every need. And we think about how many uses we have water for here in the West and how often we use it, and we don't even think twice about it. I mean, we are so incredibly wasteful with water. I was just at a water park with my son and just thinking about how much water is at this water park and what people around the world would give to have access to something like that. And so we provide solutions that are going to help people have water for bathing, for cooking, for cleaning, for laundry, for everything that they possibly need, which is going to help produce the best outroads out of poverty. So love the work that I do, and being able to be a part of something that I think is truly transformative in our world.
You know, that's so true. And you hear these stories. It's usually the woman of the family, the wife or the mother of the family that has to trek all day long in one direction and bring back a pot of water, sometimes on their head. They do it every day since they're a baby, just for the family's daily water. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, that prohibits them from being able to do
anything
many
else.
other things.
That's the whole day.
And you think about it, if they had the time and they had the ability and they didn't have to do that, what could they produce? What could they invent? What could they pursue if that wasn't a barrier anymore? So, I completely agree.
Yeah. So practically, as a practical matter, what exactly does Healing Water International do? How does they make this possible?
Yeah, so we work with partners on the ground. We have teams in Mexico, Haiti, and Guatemala. People that are from those countries know how to navigate those countries and those systems, build partnerships. We've worked with local municipalities, and we build typically large scale water infrastructure. So this is using usually groundwater and purifying it so that it is up to what we say EPA standards. It gets rid of difficult contaminants. We were just working in a community where the mining industry dumped a lot of very harmful contaminants in the river source. And so there were things that could not just be purified through traditional easy means. And so we did some really comprehensive engineering, and I mean our engineering team, but using technologies that are not, I would say, really seen in the developing world quite as much. And so that community just received safe water. We celebrated and inaugurated that system actually this past week. And so it's building like more large scale water infrastructure projects. So not so much wells or household filtration mechanisms. It's doing things that would maybe be similar to solutions we use here in the U.S.
Now, the way you and I met was through you're a survivor of the Columbine shooting. So tell us about that.
Yeah.
You had to be really young. You had to be like a freshman, right?
I was a sophomore. I was a young sophomore, so I was 15 at the time. I went to Columbine. I went to private school all the way through 8th grade and really wanted to go to my neighborhood public school, which was Columbine. A lot of my friends went there. And so I enrolled freshman year and then was there, through my sophomore year. So it was towards the end of the school year. And around that time, it was typical for the seniors to do pranks. I think, and we had, I don't know if it was a normal high school experience or not, but the seniors could pull some really amazing pranks. I think at one point they had dumped crickets all the way down the stairs of the school. And so they just did some crazy things. So anyways, I was in the library. I was getting some homework done on April 20th, 1999. was at a table there looking out at the mountains here in Colorado, and just plugging away. I was supposed to do cheerleading tryouts that evening, and so I was really focused on getting my homework done. I was very focused on completing my to-do list. And I would say a few minutes into the library period, I began to hear these loud bangs going off that were starting to almost shake the library, and had no idea what it was really honestly not too bothered by it, thought that maybe it was construction, thought that maybe, as I had mentioned, the seniors were throwing a prank. Like I was like, oh, there's something that's just happening, and was not really worried at all. And so I continued to do my homework, and the bangs continued, and started maybe getting a little bit concerned, started thinking, what is this? This feels a little bit off. And so basically what happened at that point is a pipe bomb, which I didn't know. I mean, I know now, but a pipe bomb went off right outside of the library, and the library began to fill with smoke. And this all happened so fast and so slow at the same time. But a teacher came running into the room, and she seemed just incredibly frantic. I remember, her just looking very distraught. And she was telling us, everybody, a kid has been shot, a kid has been shot, a kid has been shot. And she was just saying that over and over again. And she was like, get under your tables now. And I got under my table, still like so skeptical about what was happening, still not entirely sure about, like just almost in a state of disbelief. She goes behind the library desk at the front, and I hear her get on the phone with 911, and she's making a call to them and basically saying what she was telling us, that a kid has been shot. She's at Columbine High School. They need emergency right now, police right now. And so she continues to yell at us because some of the kids weren't listening, like, kids, get under your tables, get under your tables. So I got under my table, or at some point in time got under my table, and I just remember it was just me there, and there was a library table with about 6 chairs surrounding it, and I pulled each of those chairs as close to my body as I possibly could, and just kind of couched over and into like a little ball. The library was filling with smoke, more smoke at this time, and the fire alarm started going off. The lights went off, and it was just what felt like chaos. I could see the entrance and the exit to the library from my table, and I looked over to the entrance, and I see these 2 kind of shadowy figures enter the library, and I could see, make out from what I could see, that they were holding guns, that one of them had artillery strapped to his shoulder, that they were wearing trench coats, and they said to us, everybody get ready to die, is the first thing that came out of their mind, or their mouth. And they proceeded to just start shooting. And there was 3 sections to the library. I was in the 3rd section and they were separated by books. So I was in the 3rd section, but I could still see a lot of what was happening because of where my table was positioned. And so at first I heard a lot of shots and screams, and then it progressively got closer and closer to me. And there were computer cubbies directly in front of me. One of the first things that I saw them do as the shadows continued to move closer and closer to where the shooters did is they went and put their gun directly under the computer cubby and pulled the trigger. And I remember the kid that was there basically just slump over. They walked around my table to where there was a lot of other students, and I was seeing them point their gun under the tables and pull the trigger. And I could hear students who had been shot, and what they were saying, and they were saying things like, I can't believe you just shot him, stuff like that. The shooters continued to talk to us while we were under our table, saying things like, hey, if you get up from under your table, we won't kill you. They were saying many, many other horrific things that I would never want to repeat, using racial slurs, making fun of particularly jocks, people who were wearing white hats. And they kept saying,
what did the white hats mean?
So at that time in high school, it meant that you were a jock. And so, the backstory of the shooters at Columbine is that they were heavily bullied by the jocks. And so when they came into the library, they were really targeting everybody, and wanted to kill as many people as they possibly could. But they did call out people with white hats that day. And so that's one of the things I remember hearing quite a bit.
Wait, let me ask you a question real quick. Now, at this time, when this happened, now we weren't experiencing these shootings like we are now all the time. Like the kids in high school today are used to this kind of thing happening.
Yes.
So, what was it, though, about you that you knew to go there and make like a little barricade with the chairs and stuff? Like, what made you have that presence of mind to do that kind of thing?
I mean, I think I was just listening to the teacher that came in and was warning us that a kid had been shot, and she had told us to get under our tables. And I mean, that I would say was me just kind of following what was being told to me. And
were the other kids doing that too, or was everyone making little?
Yeah. Everybody got under their tables for the most part, and kids got under their computer cubbies. Everybody was kind of just sheltering in place, basically. Right. I mean, I think that the teacher was just trying to tell us something that would help cover us or protect us at some level.
Because teachers
really
weren't prepared for this either back in those days. The teachers,
and there was no frame of reference, no like we didn't do active shooter drills, or that like you said. That this wasn't, Columbine was one of the first major mass shootings that happened in our country. And so this was something that I know just shocked everybody. And so basically the shooters, after they had shot really around my section, at one point in time, I could see their boots through the slits of my table as they were walking by, and I could see their shotgun shells kind of rolling on the ground as they were firing their weapon. They are continuing to talk to us. They're continuing to warn us and basically say, don't worry, you're all going to be dead soon. And so, I honestly, in that moment, was bracing to die. I had that experience, which I think is common, where I just was almost, my body, my mind was preparing itself for its last moments on earth. And I was almost essentially saying goodbye to the life that I had, saying goodbye to my, family, my dog, my friends, and just getting ready for it to be my last day. They came very, very close to my table and looked under, and I, at one point, made eye contact with one of the shooters. He had, in the chaos of everything, shot his nose or hurt his nose, and so his face was bloody and his eyes were almost like there was nobody there. It looking at this person, it did not look like a person. It looked more like a zombie, somebody who had just completely left. And for whatever reason, he didn't shoot me. I don't know what the cause of that was, but soon after that, they left the library. I found out later that they had large propane tank bombs that were underneath us in the cafeteria. So the library was directly above the cafeteria, and they put propane tank bombs down in the cafeteria that had not detonated. If they had, it would have killed all of us. But we found out from a bomb expert later that they had a few wires crossed. And so fortunately, those didn't go off. But what they did was go check on them and try shooting them to detonate. Well, we took that as a moment of time after, and I could see them leave, as I mentioned, being able to see the exit, to get up. I remember getting up and I saw some of my fellow students, some who had been shot, people that just looked like they were in total shock. And I made eye contact with one of my friends, still friends with him to this day. And we both kind of said, like, should we get out of here? And we went through an emergency exit where we were greeted by cops to come outside of the school. So from there, we were able to be taken to a secure location where we basically stayed until finally our parents were able to come and get us.
So even the cops weren't ready for this kind of thing. They didn't know how to handle this.
Not at all. And when I exited the school through the emergency exit, the cops had their guns drawn at us.
Yeah.
So they had their guns pointed at us, not knowing what was happening either. So we kind of ran to them. I think they could easily tell that we were not, the shooters. Mm. And they motioned for us to come back behind the cop car. It was just two of them, two cops, that's it, pointing their guns at the school. And tons of kids who were in this library situation behind their cop car, several of them wounded. And I remember the cops just saying, take care of the wounded. And so we were taking our socks off and making tourniquets. We were trying to stop the bleeding of students. I heard students asking ones that had been shot, trying to just keep them calm, asking them how was your sociology test today? Tell me about that. So trying our best as teenagers, almost fending for ourselves at that point in time. Eventually the cops told us to get into their cop car. They took care of course, the wounded first and got them out. But eventually they came back and got us, and they took us to a cul-de-sac. So that was kind of how we got to a safer space.
You mentioned earlier that you're hiding in the cubby there, right? And you could see their trench coats and their boots. Now, Ted, did you recognize these guys? And you know them from school right away and say, hey, those are those two guys, Harris and Klebold. Did you know them?
So they had a reputation. Columbine's a big school. I mean, there was, a few thousand students there. And I was a sophomore. They were seniors. And so I had heard of them through friends that there was a group called the Trench Coat Mafia, and that they were, highly bullied and different and, kind of ostracized in a lot of ways. But I did not have any personal connections to them at all, or any conversations to them at all. Just didn't know them.
So you didn't know their names at all?
I didn't, no.
But you had seen other people walking around with trench coats and boots?
Yes, and I mean, again, it was such a big school, and I didn't register it. They had a reputation, but it wasn't something that I had taken note of or ever thought was going to be threatening to me in any way. Never had that sense. I went to school there generally feeling pretty safe and never would have imagined this happening.
So now, after you're out there with the cops and stuff like that, were you ever questioned by the police? You were an eyewitness to everything that went on.
At that point, no. I mean, the cops were just in full chaos mode. It was, and so when we get to the cul-de-sac, so many people are wounded. Neighbors are coming out. They're bringing towels. trying to help the situation. We have news crews pulling into the cul-de-sac, interviewing us. We're all still in absolute shock. And so our ability to articulate what had happened was very limited. We see it was almost like a trickle of more and more people continue to come to the location over time. I remember seeing a teacher, and she came up and gave me a hug and was like, Heidi, I'm so glad you're safe. We, at one point in time, got a lot of other students together, and we formed like a prayer circle, and we started praying for our school and for the other students and people that we weren't sure if they were okay. There was just so many questions at that point in time about everyone. I was welcomed into the home because everything's barricaded, so we can't leave this cul-de-sac. I was welcomed into one of the homes of a friend of mine. And, they allowed me to call my parents, and because my parents didn't even know, like we didn't have cell phones back then. That's how long ago this was. I couldn't even get a hold. It's not like I could call my mom and be like, hey, I'm okay. So I called my mom. She was at work. And she was like, Heidi, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, Mom. She's like, did you see people die? And I said, yes, Mom.
Now, imagine how terrified your mom was not hearing from you. Because now you're a mom, right? You have your kids,
Yeah. When she told me, she's like, your dad's going to come get you. Yeah. And my dad, it took him until like 5 p.m. that night to finally reach me because of all the barricades and red tape and everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, too, because you mentioned that you guys made a prayer circle. So when you were down there in that cubby by yourself, though, you must have been praying, right?
I was. Yeah. I mean, you're just like, you're in a state of, so much shock and disbelief. And it's weird when, I feel like it's an experience that not a lot of other people go through. But when you are preparing yourself to die, it's like you are at once very terrified and scared. And I'm like, I am not ready to die. I'm not. I have so many more things that I want to do with my life. Like, I'm not ready to leave this earth. But at the same time, you have like this weird sense of calm and peace. And I felt that in that moment. And prayer helped me in that moment to really just kind of stay centered and not lose the plot. And stay very present-minded. I was interviewed by the police, several days after the shooting happened, and they told me that my account of the situation was one of the most cohesive ones that they had. And I think I attribute it to me just being able to remain calm in that situation as best that I could.
When you said that you made eye contact with one of the shooters, do you know now which one it was, Dylan or
it was Eric?
It was Eric Harris.
Yeah, it was Eric. And as I mentioned, he just looked like he wasn't even there. Like just completely, like almost when someone has that glazed over look. That's what he had, and it was almost like staring at somebody who was not human.
Any idea why
that sounds?
Yeah. Any idea why he spared you? Can you imagine? You must have thought about this a lot.
There's a piece of me that and it's hard because, you can kind of go through a lot of survivor's guilt. Yeah. And I have definitely worn the cloak of impressive. Because I survived, I now have to do something meaningful and great with my life because I was spared for a reason. And I feel like in some ways that I in looking back and processing and it now being over 20 years since this happened, is that created a lot of pressure on me that, was resulting from a situation that I did not ask for. I do feel like I have perspectives on life and on suffering, and and empathy, I think, for what maybe others, especially in other parts of the world who don't have access to the same level of resources that we have here. I like being driven more by my empathy and compassion resulting from experiencing a traumatic event versus me feeling like I have to repay a debt of some kind. I feel like that makes my work much more genuine and authentic and heart focused versus me trying to get out of some sort of guilt that, I survived. So now I have to do something good and wonderful and meaningful with my life, which I definitely felt that way for a very long time, is that, oh, Heidi, you made it. You shouldn't have. I mean, by all, and the answer is I don't know why I survived. I don't. There's no reason I should have. Honestly, my section was the deadliest section of the library. It was where most of the people died. Everyone around me, I went back to the library when it was still a crime scene to just see where I was, kind of solidify some things in my memory, be able to, walk out empowered as not a victim. And when I went into the library and I saw the crime scene, I mean, my table was virtually untouched. And everything surrounding it, the bookcases right next to me had bullet holes all in them. The computer cubbies in front of me were ripped open by bullets. The other tables, I mean, blood stains everywhere. I should not have survived. I don't know how and why I did. And the best that I can do is just go on and live life and live life, as I mentioned, just full of compassion and empathy and with an understanding of what survival feels like, and use that as a means to hopefully alleviate some level of suffering in the world.
Well, it's an extreme trauma to go through something like that, right? A near-death experience. Now, did you have some kind of therapy, like at that period of time?
So I feel like we've grown so much as a society as it relates to mental health, and I'm so thankful for that. It was not at the forefront when I went through this, and I truthfully white knuckled it for over 10 years.
Wow.
So I mean, I would have panic attacks and would try to just work through them. I would see things that would remind me of the shooters and instantly go into a state of panic. I could not be around fireworks for a very long time. I remember being at Disney World, and my dad had to pull me into the candy store and lock eyes with me because fireworks were going off and I was in a tailspin. So therapy was not something that I went through. I post Columbine, I traveled and I spoke, and I think that there was a level of almost toxicity in my survivorhood, in that Heidi survived for a reason, God spared her for a reason, was a lot of the messaging that came out of that. And, here she is having gone through a traumatic event and not needing, therapy, not needing medication. And meanwhile, I definitely needed all of those things. And so when I hit age 25, after white knuckling it for 10 years, I basically had what I would say was a mental break, and I just could not anymore. I definitely did not want to leave this earth. I wanted to continue living, but the trauma of what I went through I could not escape it anymore. It was just constant in my face and constant, where I was really unable to, I would say, function in a healthy way. And so I really dug in at that moment in time to pursuing healing for myself.
Now you were saying that when you were during that period of time when you were doing those speaking engagements, was that through the church? You were doing church speaking.
A lot of it, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I went through that myself. Yeah, I had a little miracle happen.
Oh,
to me.
you did?
Oh, yeah, I was going to go to prison for 15 years. I got saved. I got out of that one. I got saved. Then I went to work for a tent ministry. I actually lived and traveled with a tent ministry for many years. But I've seen that. Yes, I know that circuit they get you on. And it's a trip.
It's the circuit. Yeah. I understand why.
And they mean well.
My story
they're
was
well-meaning.
compelling.
Yeah, they mean well. They're well-meaning people, and it is a miracle. You can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then they start to hold you to a higher standard.
It was not healthy for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear you with that. Yeah. Well, now what about though? You had there were so many people that went through the same thing as you. You had friends at that school. Yeah. So now, did you form like a little group with them and go back and revisit this events?
Yeah. So there's a few people that I still am in contact with to this day. We spoke together and have a lot of shared experiences. I think being able to share trauma with people is so helpful. There's going through something that is that traumatic where most of society won't know what that's like or won't know, how that feels and how to recover from that. To be able to have allies and people that have been there is definitely a gift. And I feel bonded to these people for life. We'll go periods of time where we won't see each other for a while. But I think just being able to have people that get it, because not a lot of people will, and you don't feel so alone, because it can be very trauma, particularly a very acute, violent trauma, can make you feel alone. It can make you feel like, am I the crazy one? I mean, there were things that were rolling through my head post-Columbine that I'm like, what is that? And it was all just related to what I had seen, and my brain trying to make sense of it. And so being able to hear that other people had same or similar experiences is very affirming and validating, and it makes you feel like you're not the crazy one in the situation.
When we booked this interview, I was under the impression that you were like a gun control spokesperson or something like that. I don't know why. I'm busy. I'm booking guests. So now, what is your position? Now, what do you think? This is a phenomenon. This situation of kids flipping out and going to school.
Yeah.
You've been living this for a long time. You've been dwelling on the situation. You've had some ideas. What do you think is the way out of this craziness?
I mean, and I'm not going to sit here and claim I have all the answers.
You're not going to solve it for us? Come on, Heidi. I brought you on the show. I expect some solutions.
I can try, yeah. You're like, this is the whole reason you were invited. Yeah, you're going to give us all the answers to gun violence in the United States. And I think from a high level is that we have not been willing to grapple with this issue the way that it needs to be done and the causality behind it as a country. And the fact that this has become, and I think I mentioned earlier on that, when Columbine happened, it shocked everybody. Everyone was asking, how on earth could this happen? And I think many were saying, never again are we going to allow this to happen in our schools where children are and children feel unsafe going to school. Never again are we going to let that happen. And it did happen, and it happened again and again and again and again, so much so that it is now part of our regular conscious as a country, that this is something that if it happens, it's no longer a front page story. It's something that maybe is noted, in a news report. And we have become almost callous to the fact that this is a regular thing. I hate that my son, who is going into middle school, has to go through active shooter drills. I hate that that has to be something that they have to consider and think about. And I just feel like we have not done what we need to do as a country to figure out why this happens here, which we have peer countries that I could say we could point to very, similar things to, that it doesn't happen in. So why does it happen here? Mm-hmm. And, I do think that there is a level of our love affair with guns that creates a recipe sometimes for these things to happen. But I think that it's very nuanced and deep, and I'm not going to be somebody that's going to say that it needs to be a black and white type of solution. And but I do think that we really need to take a hard look as to why this is happening. And I just don't feel like we have. I think what we have gotten to instead is almost just, this is the status quo, and have settled into this being a part of what it looks like to live in America now. And almost to the point where we've worked to manage to it rather than prevent it by doing, active shooter drills, by trying to fortify schools. We're trying to manage the problem, make sure that we can maybe reduce casualties when they happen, which I think has happened. Mass shootings are not maybe as disastrous as they have been, but I would love to see us just eliminate the cause, and that's something I think that there hasn't been an appetite really to do at a high level.
And it's become like a political football too, and we just go right back to the same talking points every single time. We're like hypnotized in this country, and we have this gun fetish, like you said. It's a fetish with people with their guns.
Yes.
What about you? You hear these theories about arming the teachers or bringing cops onto the school. I think that's a recipe for disaster.
I do too. It's like, let's throw more guns at the gun problem. Yes. You know what this gun problem needs is some more guns. Like, that's it.
I said, bring cops on, bring a cop on the school. The first one is going to get shot as a kid. Another kid by the cop. Yeah. Not some gun shooting. Oh, God.
Yeah. No, I again just feel like we need to figure out the cause behind this. Like, why is it here? We've seen other peer countries like New Zealand, Australia have mass shootings, work to figure it out, and then not have them again at the level that we do here, where it is a constant, regular thing. And I just feel like we need to figure this out. We really need to figure this out. And unfortunately, it's like we all say, when the next big one happens, maybe something will change. And we've said that and said that and said that and said that. And I'm almost of the belief that it's going to just be incremental change and us not giving up on the problem and continuing to push forward and really researching what good policy looks like, not knee-jerk, like, let's just try and figure this out with a Band-Aid type solution, but what is really going to get at the problem. And so I have done some advocacy work for bipartisan gun legislation, really working more so to just get guns out of the hands of people who present a violent threat to themselves or to others. I mean, we talk about mass shootings being a major issue, but we have to look at, the level of gun suicides that happen, or children who get a hold of a firearm and end up killing themselves or others. There's so much to this problem that's just beyond the horrificness of a mass shooting, that I feel like, domestic violence being another one, and how many women die at the hand of, their partner on a regular basis. And so it's a big problem. And I think it's something that needs a lot of effort.
And what about when you take your kid to school? You must have an eye for weaknesses and what do they come and consult with you? They say hey Heidi, how do we prevent this over here?
I haven't done that in a while. I did that a little bit where I was a part of a few think tanks on how to do things. And I worked at a school for a period of time where there was a shooting that took place at a high school very close to where we were at, and we had to go on full-on lockdown, and I had to man the door of a particular entrance exit just to make sure that nobody could get in or out. And so, I mean, it's something that is just a reality of our schools nowadays. And I know that there are protocols that, when my son is at school that they have to follow, and, they're very strict security situations, which I think can bring a level of comfort. But again, I think that is all just managing this situation that we have created versus really trying to completely alleviate it.
No, I've done many shows on Columbine, and mostly the conspiracy theory guys come on the show, Now, what do you make of that?
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I've done all those from way back.
Yeah.
And some of them, I'm looking back, I kind of have some suspicions about the guests more than I have about the theory. But now, what about yourself? Because you hear these stories with that there were other shooters there were people on the roof, that a lot of these trenchcoat mafia guys, their parents were in the local law enforcement, FBI, sheriff's department, all kind of stuff. What do you make of all that stuff? You've been living it.
Yeah, I mean, having actually been an eyewitness to all of that, I don't buy a good chunk of it. Just from what I have seen personally. As far as others, I think some of it was born out of just the sheer level of confusion that was generated from this widespread traumatic event. And there were so many things that were latched onto, that were taken from, eyewitness accounts that were in a state of absolute trauma, like things that I thought that I saw, weren't corroborated by the evidence after it happened. And so I'm very careful of what I would believe as far as those things are concerned, as it relates to any type of conspiracy theory. And I will also say, too, that just protecting my mental health, I do not dig into that stuff.
Well, but you said
it's not something I go on rabbit trails for or try to seek out information on.
I lived through October 1st in Vegas. We lived through that, and I had to keep my daughter home from school. Oh no, yeah. See, when you're there and you see the chaos and you understand, it's a different perspective than when you're reading a book or watching a movie and you come up with a theory.
Yeah.
But when you said that you questioned your own account when you heard other accounts, could you give us an example of that?
I mean, I'm trying to think of an exact example. There were just maybe things that I thought that I heard or saw, but when I mentioned that I met with the police officers, and they are obviously pulling a bunch of testimony together and have the evidence from the scene that they're able to use, that some of the things that maybe I thought that I saw, like I thought at one point that a bullet hit my desk, and it didn't. So that was something. When I went back to the library and I was able to see my desk and my table, I was able to see nothing had hit where I was. So it was just, things like that.
Well, the FBI could have easily swapped out that desk before you got back there, right?
Oh, you're sowing seeds of doubt in me now. Everything.
I hate to make jokes, but it's such a serious situation. But what about the idea that maybe there were other shooters in the background that maybe you didn't see? Is that possible?
So, and I think I know where it came from, because when we were behind the cop car, there was a lot of confusion about where the gunmen were and where they were shooting from. And so I think that there was a student who, maybe saw something and said something. And so it was just that level of, honestly, confusion at the post the event happening that I think was the reason why some of those theories popped up. But I don't think that there was more than one shooter there.
And then what about
more than two? Sorry.
Your friend group, they call it now, right? The friend group.
Yeah.
Okay. That's and you must have talked about this over the years. Do any of them think that maybe there was something more going on, something suspicious?
No, not that I know of. I think those of us that honestly lived through it, like our take being at the absolute epicenter of this is, at least in the circle that I'm in and the people that I know, is a focus on how do we go from here without looking back. And we're not going to live in the what maybe happened, didn't happen, that type of thing. We know our story. I know my truth. I know what I went through. I know what I lived through. But I'm not going to try and live in the ambiguity of the event. I feel like that would be a waste of my mental time and effort. I want to live in the now and moving forward. And what can I do with what I went through to help others. And I feel like if I were to go down that path, it would be very bad for my present state. Gotcha. And I could see my friends thinking the exact same way, and the things that they have chosen to do post Columbine with their lives too.
But you must have also seen friends who have not weathered this as well. Obviously, as you have, there must have. Yeah, come on, all kinds of reaction to trauma. People go through. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and you've seen that too as well.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And I've. One of my friends sadly committed suicide.
I was going to say
after.
that. Yeah, it's just amazing. Yeah, you have a close brush. It's very often.
Yeah, and the ways that level of trauma impacted everybody was, that's a hard thing. And I even looking at myself right now, I feel like I've done a lot of healing. But there are still days where it can get to me, and I can still struggle with certain things. I'm proud of myself for how far I've come and the work that I've done and the ways that I feel like used my experience to hopefully make the world better. I feel like I am proud of myself for choosing life. Like when you go through this, you have to choose life again. It's very easy to just be like, okay, well, I'm going to numb out. I'm going to, go through the motions. I'm going to, kind of just give up. You could very easily give up after something like this. And there were times that I wanted to not necessarily die, but just not try anymore. And I'm proud of myself for choosing to live. You have to choose to live after something like this.
Yeah, I hate to keep dropping these bombs on you, but just yesterday, I interviewed an old friend of mine. She's a death doula. Like you have a birth doula, she's a death doula.
Oh,
the coolest person in the world. She's just so cool. But
I believe it.
I spring on her. I would just spent like 2 years dying. I had a heart thing. I was dying. I thought I was going to. I dwelled on death all the time. I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't breathe. Yeah. And thank God, I had a little procedure and some medication. I'm great now. So I know what you're talking about, man. Yeah. I lived on the thinking about death and the afterlife and all for a long time.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about there. Okay.
Yeah.
But back to this situation here. Did you notice any of the politicization of the event? Were there PR groups and PR groups for the drug industry, the mental, the anti, and the gun industry, NRA? Did they all swoop in and try and control the story? Did you notice that?
Yeah, I mean, like, and as I mentioned, was in a very particular religious
Right.
group. I don't consider my part of this religious group anymore. I think that they very much co-opted the story in a lot of ways to, with an agenda to tell the story of, the miraculous and how God saves people and uses people and chooses people and that type of thing. I think that I saw for sure I would say, rally towards trying to bring Christian values in public spaces and using this as a means of doing so. And back in, one of the efforts that I was a part of, I don't agree with it now, but was to get 10 commandments in schools. And there was an agenda behind doing that for sure. I spoke with our country's leaders at the time to help make that happen. I would say that, I mean, as is common in these types of situations, as they get co-opted by certain interest groups who want to use them to meet their own agendas. And I was definitely, looking back in hindsight, used as a pawn to do those things because I have a compelling and powerful story. And I think part of where I'm at now is reclaiming my story and using it in the ways that I want to and using it for the agendas that I want to, and not allowing myself to be exploited in any way. It's a very but what's difficult about Columbine is it's a very public tragedy that happened. Everybody knows. I can say to most people, even people that, were young at the time, that I was in the library during the Columbine shooting, most people have some sort of frame of reference for what that means here in the U.S. because of its place in our history. It was a very personal experience for me. And so, my story is personal to me, and the trauma that I face as a result is personal to me. And so I want to be the one who is calling the shots and driving that car, not letting somebody else do it anymore.
If only you had gotten a patent on bulletproof 10 Commandments, you could have. Right. You could have pursued that there. Right now, you'd be a billionaire. We'd have the next Heidi Johnson. Yeah. But Heidi Johnson, Healing Water. Is it Waters or what else? Healing Waters?
Healingwaters.org. Yeah, it's the organization that I work for. We're doing really good work around the world. I think meeting a core need, and you think about water and how essential it is. So much comes out of that. And so being able to provide safe water to people is going to change communities, change lives forever. So I feel very fortunate to be able to be a part of that movement.
And how do you guys fund this healingwater.org? It can't be, there's no profit involved in this, right? It's not a money-making effort.
Oh, no, we're a not-profit. Yeah, I'm not doing this to get rich by any means. No, we rely on individuals who believe in our cause and who can see the need. I think that it's hard here in the United States. It's hard in maybe other Western countries to be able to conceptualize the suffering that other people face. And I think that it's such an easy thing when you're isolated from that here to not care. Honestly, it's very easy for people in our state. And I mean, it's a temptation for me as well to just care about me and mine. And even if that means me and my country. And I feel, though, like, with us being the wealthiest country, most powerful country in the nation, that we have a duty to help others. And having seen this level of suffering firsthand, I feel like it's something that I am always encouraged by people who want to help. And so we are supported by a group of many people who have come alongside us to help us provide these solutions.
I tell you, if only we could bomb this water into submission, we would have the problem solved overnight. All the water you could want, just drop bombs on it.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
we'll come up with another plan. Or if we can figure out some way to get them more, then sell it back to them, right? Then we'll get the problem solved that way too as well. Heidi Johnson, thank you so much, and thank you so much for being flexible with me about the schedule. I apologize.
Yeah, no worries.
Hey. I'm getting old. Heidi Johnson, healingwaters.org. It's called Healing Waters International, and you can find her on Facebook at HL Cortez, Cortez. Thank you so much, Heidi.
Yes, thank you. Wonderful to talk to you.
It really was. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Good night.
All right, bye.